ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joe, he's Nick, and you are listening to the Nick and Joe Show, coming to you live from the Think Radio Broadcast Centre in Canada's national capital. That would be Ottawa. And I am here in the studio, and unfortunately, Nick is back out on the farm. But I want to stress, he's not self-isolating, nor is he there because he is locked down under a stay-at-home order. No, our Nick Vanderkrat is an independent thinking person, and he darn well is going to get in his car and drive around when it pleases him to do so. So, how you doing there, Nick, tonight?
What I didn't know is that we have a lockdown.
Don't we still have a lockdown? Did they extend it? I don't even know. It just goes to show you how seriously we take it. That we've been under a stay-at-home order for the last month, and it hasn't affected me in the least. I mean, I just haven't stayed at home at all. And I'm probably setting myself up for some, off bench warrant case or something like that. I don't know. They're going to fine me or something. It's like taking a picture when you go through a red light. It's a red light camera. That's it. Someone's monitoring our show. Yep. So anyway, look, I haven't really done anything different, and I doubt that you've done much different. So here we are. They were supposed to announce yesterday whether or not they were going to extend the stay-at-home order and et cetera. And I have no idea whether they did or they didn't.
They did.
They did.
The latest now is it's another 2 weeks.
Another 2 weeks of ignoring the stay-at-home order. And I'll tell you, Nick, every single time I drive by that nature trail, those nature trails, I swear, Nick, the parking lots are full to overflowing. And not just on one of them, all of them. So, if the government wants to make back whatever money it's lost by shutting down all of these businesses for the last month or so, that's, I suggest you go and you hit all those guys that are violating their stay-at-home order by doing the non-essential act of walking on a nature trail. And God forbid, I think they might even be doing it, in many cases, arm in arm.
Oh, heaven forbid. We got to put a stop. Joseph, that's just not acceptable. We have to put a stop to that.
I think so, Nick. This is not, it is not tolerable.
If I can't go into my local hardware store, they can't go for a walk on a nature trail.
Although, I'm just laughing, Nick, because we just cannot, for whatever reason, stay away from this topic. It's very frustrating. But anyway...
despite our best efforts.
Yeah, but anyway, in case you guys didn't know this, ladies and gentlemen, last week when Nick was in the studio, we actually had to do some painting here. And so we didn't have the equipment and to do that. So what did I do? I just went to the local Walmart, which was open and, and crowded, and lots of people in there doing their shopping and not grocery shopping. So, again, I just cannot take. If Walmart can be open, Nick, and I could buy not just groceries, but I could buy clothes, I could buy computers, I could buy hardware stuff as we did last week. If I can't, if I have to, if that's the way it's going to be, I cannot take a stay-at-home order seriously. So,
Joseph, my wife needs a new monitor, right, for her computer. She works online and she's studying. She's in virtual school, working on a degree or a certificate, and she is always in front of her computer. She's 7-8 hours a day. She's in front of it, and the eye strain is something that is bothering her. So I suggested she get a curved monitor. It's easier on your eyes.
I didn't know that.
Anyway, yeah, I looked it up just to make sure I just wasn't blowing smoke. And according to one of the big medical institutes, was it Harvard or Johns Hopkins? That was it. According to Johns Hopkins, they're like 60 or 70% less strain on your eyes using a curved computer. The whole point of telling you that is because she said, okay, that's probably makes sense. It gives me, I can do a lot more with a big monitor than I can with a small, blah, blah, blah. So she had tried to get printer ink for her printer the week before from Staples. Well, you can only order online, and they didn't have any. So we went to Pembroke. We went out on a date night. Get this. The only two places in town that were open were the grocery store and Walmart. So on a date night with my wife, we ended up in Walmart. Go figure. But Staples, which is just down the street from Walmart, it's in the same mall complex, Staples was closed, but Walmart was open. And guess what they had in Walmart? Monitors. Now, they didn't have the one they wanted, but if they had, Staples loses out, Walmart gets a sale, we go in, don't have to pay any attention to these stay-home orders or, don't you dare go by at a store that we don't think is necessary, and none of that would have mattered. It just blows my mind, the kind of nonsense that goes on with this stuff.
And it's entirely possible, Nick, that these decisions are being made by algorithms, which is really what we wanted to talk about here. We're 7 minutes into the show already, and we're just now getting around to the topic of our segment, and that is the tyranny of algorithms. And what do we mean?
Oh, yes.
Now, Nick, what do we mean by algorithms? Can you explain that a little bit?
Algorithms are computer programs designed to think for themselves and guide you into making purchase decisions or affecting what you watch on what's the word I'm looking for? Netflix, or if you're going to buy from Amazon or anything like that. Well, these all are what the programs that suggest to you. Let me give you an example.
Okay, but just before you do, hang on. Let me just interrupt for there. But they're generic, right? So in other words, that's one function of algorithms. But an algorithm could do something else altogether, not just tell you what TV shows you should be watching or anything like that. So they're
well, that's the most common. That's
right.
The most common use for them.
Okay, yeah, but I just wanted to point that out to people.
Yeah, and you would be quite right to point that out. So I went and found an article on it. Before I do that, I'll tell you just this quick little story. My wife and I were driving back from Ottawa in the fall, and we were talking about either tires or dog food amongst ourselves, because we had to put new snow tires on the car. I can't remember which trip it was, because on one trip we talked about one thing, and on the other we talked about dog food. I think it was the dog food trip, and we had to pick up some dog food when we got home, because we have dogs and they like to eat, and I'm not feeding them the stuff we eat because it's too expensive. Anyway, long story short, we got home. My wife sits down at her computer, and the very first thing to pop up when she opens up her Facebook page, bingo, sale on dog food. Now, we thought that was a bit of a fluke. It happened again with the tires. And we looked at each other and said, how did they know? And all of a sudden, I looked at my cell phone and said, I know how they know. They were listening. There was an algorithm listening to what we said, listening for keywords. And because of that conversation, it knew what we were thinking about purchasing, so it posted ads specifically tailored to what our needs were.
Now, did you pay for these things by credit card?
No.
You paid by cash?
We bought. Yeah, but it was through the phone that the
it would have
phone was listening to us.
Now that's
because go ahead.
I would not. You see, if you had told me, of course we paid by credit card, I would have said, well, that was actually probably the reason. But you're saying you paid by cash, so that is very eerie, because usually you don't think that your telephones are listening to you. But so that it's hard to dismiss once. Maybe as coincidence, but twice in a row, I mean, it is a little eerie.
Yes, it is. And I went online today and found an article about algorithms and they apparently they have several features here. Let me just see if I can find. Let's see. This is from a website called Knowledge and Wharton, and they're talking to the conversation between the interviewer from Knowledge and Wharton is talking to a guy who just wrote a very technical book on this, Kartik Hosanagar, Hosanagar. That's the name of the author who wrote the book. And there's he gets into it and one of the questions when it comes to AI is, this is him responding to a question. Are we going to use AI to make decisions? If so, are we going to use it to support human decision-making? Are we going to have AI make decisions autonomously? If so, what can go wrong? What can go well? And how do we manage this? We know AI has a lot of potential, but I think there will be some growing pains in our way there. The growing pains are what I focus on. How can algorithmic decisions go wrong? How do we make sure they have the control over the narrative of how technology impacts the decisions that are made for us or about us? Let's see. They ask him about, what are the implications of this? I began the book with a description of Microsoft's experience with a chat called Jiaboing. In China, it's called Jiaboing. Elsewhere in the world, it's called Jai Choice or something like that. I can't read Chinese, so I'm really struggling to try to pronounce that correctly. This chatbot was created in the avatar of a teenage girl. It's meant to engage in fun, playful conversations with young adults and teenagers. This chatbot had about 40 million followers in China. Reports say that roughly a quarter of those followers have said, I love you to this avatar. That's the kind of affection and following that this avatar has. Inspired by that success, Microsoft decided to test a similar chatbot in the U.S. They created one in English which would engage in fun, playful conversations. It was targeted once again at young adults and teenagers. They launched it on Twitter under the name Tay. But this time, the chatbot's experience was very different and short-lived. Within an hour of launching, the chatbot turned sexist, racist, and fascist. It tweeted very offensively. It said things like, Hitler was right. Microsoft shut it down within 24 hours. Later that year, MIT's Technology Review rated Microsoft's Tay as the worst technology of the year. Okay, why did the experience differ so dramatically? That's the question. One of the insights that I got, and I don't mean to read the whole article, but just I think people need to know this.
Right, this is actually quite fascinating.
Yeah, I thought so too, so I'm sharing it. One of the insights that I got as I was writing this book, trying to explain the differences in behavior of these two chatbots, was from human psychology. Psychologists describe human behavior in terms of nature and nurture. Our nature is our genetic cord, and nurture is our environment. Psychologists attribute the problematic issues like alcoholism, for instance, partly to nature and partly to nurture. I realized algorithms too have a nature and nurture. Nature for algorithms is not a genetic code, but the code that an engineer actually writes. That's the logic of the algorithm. Nurture is the data from which the algorithm learns. Okay, well, I think I can get this done in one more paragraph here. Increasingly, as we move towards machine learning, we're heading away from a world where engineers used to program end of logic of an algorithm, where they would actually specify what happens in any given situation. If this happens, you respond this way. If that happens, you respond in a different way. Earlier, it used to be all about nature because the programmer gave very minute specifications telling the algorithm how to work. But as we move towards machine learning, we're telling algorithms, here's the data, learn from it. So nature starts to become less important and nurture starts to dominate.